What's up, everybody? Welcome to the podcast now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Scream 2022 or Scream 5, again, however you want to look at it, flashback sequences, okay? Now, we've talked about this before. There's definitely evidence, I would say, to suggest that something like this could happen, that we could be taken, obviously, back in time to see events of probably just the first movie, which I'm not going to argue, and we can talk about, obviously, if they should do more, but I want to talk about that, what they could potentially do, which we've touched on, but I also want to talk about who they could bring back, right? Obviously, I think that's something that a lot of people would love to see certain characters return, certain characters maybe not return, and so I want to go over that as well, okay? As always, if you guys are new here, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you guys have the bell icon turned on. I do a new Scream video every single Tuesday. Incredibly consistent in that regard. If you guys haven't followed me over on Twitter yet, PodcastNow15 is my Twitter handle. It's a great way to get in contact with me. It's a great way, I talk about all sorts of things, games, movies, all that stuff over there, and obviously here, right? All that good stuff. So, like I said, I want to make more Scream videos. We're going to be continuing it. Hopefully, we get some sort of teaser trailer or trailer within the next several months, and we will go from there, okay? So here's what I want to say. There is evidence. It's not staring us like directly in the face. It's definitely possible that people have like read too much into it, or they're just doing something flat out different, with some of these things. But the two biggest things is people saw certain cars that were very reminiscent of the vehicles. Especially, I think it was the sheriff cars or like police cars. They were very reminiscent of cars they used back in Scream. So that was the first thing, and that was from like people who took pictures, people that were like close to the set, stuff like that. Or I guess even like looking at shots that were on set, okay? That's what first got this theory going. They're like, oh, odd. And I think maybe Sydney's dad's car is also in, potentially in this movie. So stuff like that was definitely getting people to say, okay, well, these cars, even some specific cars, are literally reminiscent of cars that were in the original Scream. But the other big one, obviously, is Stu's house. So this was made a very big deal of, right? Kevin Williamson with Ghostface, then we had Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox with Kevin Williamson. So we had that, which it definitely did look like it. We know that, Stu's house is in this movie. And so that, I actually made a video. It actually was really good. I think it's my biggest Scream video to date. But, in that video, we talked about, okay, well, why is that house there? Is it going to be some sort of kind of end game for Sydney? Like, are they finishing it where it started in a way, like with Scream, right? So, like, is the end confrontation between Sydney and, let's say, like, the Carpenter sisters? Like, is that between, obviously, versus Ghostface? Is that in the house, which obviously would very much tie into the ending of Scream 1, right? So is that what they were doing? Well, it really could be a flashback thing. It really could. Now, I guess the final one, which definitely is not very, verifiable, right? It's not something that necessarily means anything. Courtney Cox, I believe, was the one, right, who was, like, adding all these different people on Instagram when she was, filming the movie, and one of them was Skeet Ulrich, obviously Billy Loomis, right, from the first one. So that was something that people took a certain way. There's also the hints of, like, Selena Gomez and other people. So, like, again, you could read into that however you want. You don't have to read into that at all if you don't want, right? But I think, especially the potential of what you could do with flashbacks is enormous. We're not gonna have truly this situation again, because, and we've talked about it, right? We talked about it with different people on this channel, and I've talked about it in different just respects in general. Going forward, Scream 6, Scream 7, if you're gonna even do stuff like that, even if you have Sydney, it is just going to be different. This probably will be, and I really do think it will be, the last one that'll have any major focus left on Sydney, okay? And to be honest with you, I don't even think the main target will be Sydney. I do think that, whatever family, tree kind of thing that the movie will go down, I do think it'll link with Sydney, but this will probably be it. And so, again, as we've talked about, yeah, if they did another Scream, of course I want Neve Campbell back. I think it's actually a must-have. If you don't have it, I'm going to be pretty upset and pretty skeptical of it, okay? So, but with that being said, I do think that they're not going to really focus on her. She'll be more like a mentor. Maybe she'll be protecting these girls or whoever's left after this movie, right, as they get older. And she'll kind of just be like a mentor character, which is fine, This is the last one where she really, even though she probably isn't in it all that much, which kind of sucks, she is in the spotlight in a certain respect, right? So I do think this is a phenomenal chance to still link it up with the original. Now, we've heard a lot about, considering from the two directors, about this movie being very reminiscent of Scream, and obviously taking a lot of what was learned throughout these Scream movies into this movie. Now, what I've always said is I don't want this movie to be a carbon copy of the original. I don't want an opening kill that's like, oh, you did the Drew Barrymore thing again. I want things to feel familiar, I guess, in a respect. I want there to be respectfulness of the past, right? Those maybe like Easter eggs, stuff like that. But also, I guess, honoring the past. So like certain name drops, you could drop names, you could, do different stuff like that, just to kind of, again, make it known that, okay, you care about where this franchise has gone. That's the stuff that when they talk about the movies that have come before and how important they are, that's the stuff I hope they do. I hope they don't do literally, oh, this one had this kind of killer and that kind of killer. Let's, replicate it here. Oh, this one ended this way. Let's do that here. Oh, this one had this setting. Let's do that here. I don't need that, because then we're just watching the same. I get it. We're not technically watching the same movies over, but you know what I mean? Now, flashbacks obviously have been done quite a bit over the last, for a long time, but we've really seen over the last, I would say, 5, 6, 7 years, them trying to bring people through de-aging, flashbacks in general, right? It's been a really big thing in Hollywood. Now, I'm not a horror guy. I know there's other, obviously, channels out there, even some that I've, talked to, right, that cover, like, purely horror. I don't care nor know if it's been done all that much in other horror movies, but you can look at Star Wars, you can look at Pirates of the Caribbean. Pirates did it with Jack, right? Young Jack Sparrow. I mean, it's been done all over the place, okay? All over the place. And it's been done really well in some places, not as well as in some places. That's something that I would be worried about. So if they do a flashback, I would hope that they do some de-aging. Now, here's what let's jump to the chase. I know we waited till the 6-minute mark, but let's jump to the chase. If they did a flashback, I would like to see, more than anything else, 3 characters come back. Billy, Stu, and Randy. You can use them now. So you could use Jamie Kennedy. You can use, Skeet Ulrich. You can use Matthew Lillard. You can bring them back. And I really think the odds of at least one of them returning is pretty high. Now, why Randy? I just like Randy. Jamie Kennedy, I think, is a really cool guy. I've watched a lot of his YouTube videos. He's doing a pretty... I think I could help him in the YouTube algorithm stuff, but he's doing a really good job over on YouTube as well. So maybe not Randy, okay? But in reality, I think reintroducing one of the 2, original killers, I think does make sense. I don't know. I really do. I think especially Billy is obviously such an... Well, Stu is an iconic role, too. It's tough. It's tough because you'll say, okay, well, if you had to pick one, Billy, I think, means more to Sydney, right? That relationship kind of stuff. He's been mentioned before. Obviously we can go down that Scream 3 part, right, where she kind of, like, hears them, like, things playing out in her head. So, like, obviously, like, some stuff has already kind of been done, right? Stu is just as iconic, I would say, because of Matthew Lillard's, like, performance. But Billy makes more sense in terms of connecting with Sydney. But it depends on how the flashbacks work, right? And I actually talked about that in the Stu's house video, right? Is, like, Sydney having flashbacks of the past, so she's thinking back to certain things that happened. In which case, do we see a de-aged Sydney? Do we see how many people are kind of attached to that? You know what I mean? Do we see maybe if Sydney goes to the house, depending on if she's depending on if the movie sets it up to, I guess, redo, Scream, where, like, she's literally going to face off against Ghostface, or, I did bring this up in that video, maybe she just goes there for closure. Maybe she's like, maybe she can't get over something about the past, and she goes to Stu's house, like, at the very end, and she's like, okay, like, I'm done. Like, this is where, my life kind of started to fall apart, and, like, there were a lot of issues, but I want to move on. And in that case, if that happened, like, at the very end of the movie, I don't really think you would have, like, a flashback of any other characters, but if it happened, like, somewhere in the middle, I think you could. Or, again, if you did it where she's actually, if it's, like, an action thing, if she's facing off against Ghostface. So, honestly, I really think there's so many things that you can get from a flashback. Obviously, like, the cool factor is one of them. Seeing characters that we all love come back in some way is a cool thing. But also emotionally, like, if they play it the right way, where, like, somebody's going through something. And by the way, it doesn't have to just be Sydney. It could be, Gail. It could be Dewey. You could see a sister, stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff you could do, but I think done right, you can actually get emotion. You can get some character depth because they're thinking back to something, whether it was a mistake or, whatever, the like happier times, however you want to look at it. And I really think you can get something from there on top of just fan service. The fan service is bringing back these characters, but I think you can layer it with like character development on top. And that's what I hope. If they do it, that's what I want. Okay, honestly, that's really what I want. So let me know, guys, in the comments below. Again, multi-question kind of thing. Should they do flashbacks? Will they do flashbacks? What characters would be in them? All that stuff. Let me know in the comments below. Again, as always, make sure you guys are subscribed. Bell icon turned on. Twitter, Podcast Now 15 is my Twitter handle. Thank you all so much for watching. Again, I make a brand new Scream video every single Tuesday, and so I hope to see you guys for next week's video.